So thank you for being here. The premise that we are entering into is that the online video test of 2009, 2010, you, our clients, clients around the country have told us that that test is pretty much over. That ship has sailed, and that the test came back with pretty terrific scores. This one is all A's. Maybe there was a B. I heard there was one C. But for the most part, the online video test is done. And now, and that's in the success of that, these A's, these B's that we're talking about, is really now we're looking at, this is why the online video segment of advertising, of online advertising, is the fastest growing. Far and away the fastest growing segment in digital advertising. And so now the question really becomes, how do I make online video an integral part of my media mix? And so we built this roadshow on 3 questions that you marketers have asked us to answer. The first is, as I start to shift television dollars, what are the implications to my TV buy as I make online video an integral part of the mix? The second question really comes around, what are the audience trends? Who's consuming video? Where are they consuming it? What are they consuming? How are they consuming it? You know, is this the 16-year-old gamer? Or, you know, how does this span? Generations? That kind of thing. And then the third question that you guys have been asking us is that how best to plan online video now that convergence has become a reality. So as we're moving to that second screen, that third screen, that fourth screen, what does that look like? What do those consumption patterns look like? And how do I start to plan across that? And can I plan across all those screens? All right. So where are we? So the only people that are really interested in what screen is being consumed and what and where is really us. It's those of us in the room. We're the only ones that are wonking out about this, right? Because to the consumer, they don't care. It just needs to be a terrific experience. They just need to find that, video wherever they want it, whenever they want it, wherever they are, etc. And they want a really terrific experience with it too. This whole buffering thing's over. So it looks like this as we start to break down the consumption patterns. I know this will come to a shocker as, you know, to all of you, but there's a terrific amount of video that's consumed during the day. It's primarily short form. I'm sure it's all research. Nobody's having fun doing that. And it's, the PC is at work. Then it goes to the smartphone. And that smartphone is everywhere and anywhere. It's basically, it's out of office and out of home. Smartphone's on the train, smartphone is in the park, smartphone is in the pub, smartphone is right here in front of you. Right? So you guys could, when I had my Droid, it was fascinating to me. I had my Droid for about 10 minutes and my daughter was watching the Brady Bunch on it, right, as we're driving out of the store. So it's consumed frequently and looks really good now. And then the third is at home. A lot of video consumption at home. And yeah, it's on the TV, but is that TV connected? Is it DVR'd? Is it time shifted? And then is my daughter and my son, if they're a focus group of 2, while they're doing that, they're multitasking. They're on IM, they've got their PC, they're maybe watching something else, pulling something else up. They're talking to friends. So the TV at home, but is it a connected device? All right, so as I just mentioned those different pieces, I'm sure everybody here has been watching the NFL playoffs. And I was watching it a couple weeks ago, and I saw this 30-second spot from the NFL. The NFL truly gets it, right? This is a terrific product, and they understand that consumer really, really well. And they demonstrated that with this spot. And I think it demonstrates what I was just talking about, too.
Welcome to NFL Network's playoff coverage. We have plenty to talk about as the race to the
NFL draft is officially open. Here are my NFL.com fantasy projections for 2011. Adrian Peterson's one of my top running backs.
This is NFL Red Zone, where you get every touchdown from every game. Touchdown!
Get the NFL. Anytime, anywhere.
Anytime, anywhere. The NFL understands their consumer really, really well. the TV turns into a tablet, the tablet turns into a PC, the PC turns into a smartphone, the smartphone turns back into a television. So what we're realizing in the research that we're starting to do is that, and literally as recently as last night, I was talking with somebody who's considering shifting television dollars into online video. And we've been watching this pattern since the day I arrived at YuMe on February 1st, 2010. And anecdotally and research-wise, business-wise, we're learning this over and over. And why? Why are television dollars changing? Well, yeah, consumption patterns are certainly changing. If yours haven't changed in the last 2 years, they've probably changed in the last 2 weeks. Online video, impression per impression, is more impactful than TV. Now, that's quite a statement. But if you think about it, just very simply, it makes sense. This is a lean forward medium versus lean back. This is a pull medium versus push. Impression per impression, more impactful. And then performance increases as online video is added to the media mix. Our research will demonstrate that over and over and over today. And we're not talking about, well, and so it makes what we're affectionately calling 1 + 1 = 3. So if I added if I put in the idea of taking $5 million worth of television, shift $1 million of that into online video, 1 + 1 will equal 3. Again, we'll demonstrate that frequently over and over. But what we're not talking about is we're not talking about this as a zero-sum game. We're talking about this holistically. Our clients are telling us over and over that they're starting to look at that which was sight, sound, and motion in all the different forms, and now it's just called video. And how do we plan for that accordingly? How do we add the various sprinkles of the very different devices? So we have 3 people today that are going to be taking us through this, actually 4. First is we have a gentleman here from Nielsen who is going to, by the way, I'm only going to ask for a show of hands, maybe once or twice. But if you would, how many people here are familiar with Nielsen Fusion? 3 or 4? 5? Howard is familiar with it. So Howard's here from Nielsen. He's going to take us through the Nielsen Fusion tool and basically how you can shift around your various media pieces and how it can make it more effective and more efficient. We have Travis Hockersmith, who is here as the Director of Market Analytics and Analysis from Research and Analysis from YuMe. And Travis comes to us by way of Intel. A lot of street cred with this guy because he was just planning hundreds of millions of dollars worth of television and looking at how shifting video, online video, into that mix and how to make it more efficient. So I asked Travis if maybe he'd like to come do that at YuMe and do it across hundreds of brands. And so he's here to do that. And then Mike Vorhaus, who is the president of Frank Magid and Associates, he's somebody that I called about 2 or 3 months ago, and I gave him this hypothesis, that the audience that is consuming video in a connected device is getting larger and larger and larger every day as cable cords are getting cut. I had a conversation with somebody out here who's cutting their cable cord and is getting all of their sight, sound, and motion through a connected device. Satellite bills are getting canceled, and that audience is growing larger and larger. So I was wondering, can today's traditional television buyer actually reach that consumer if all they're doing is getting all their sight, sound, and motion through connected devices? So I called Mike up with that hypothesis, and I asked him if he would do some research for us. And essentially, it's based on that premise that this roadshow is born. All right, so with no further ado then, I'd like to bring up Mike Vorhaus. Mike has been doing research for, I don't even want to say how many years, Mike, it's decades. But Mike has been doing research for decades, both traditional as well as online. I call him a hybrid of, he is part mad scientist, he is part wine geek, and he is all things research. So if you will, Mike Vorhaus.
Thank you very much. We should do this over dinner. We need to try this sometime over dinner so we can actually serve wine I saw the
I gotta get out of your way.
I saw the CEO of Kayak doing that, but it seems so much more appropriate at 6 p.m. than it does at 8 a.m. Thank you, Scott. Yeah, Scott and I started working together soon after the MarketWatch.com IPO in '97, I guess that would have been. Scott was one of the founding executives there. My first client actually in '94 in the AOL was actually AOL, where Howard was for many years. We had the privilege of doing a large amount of AOL's membership recruitment research in the days in which 6% of the country was online, '94, '95. Today we're working with people like Google. We work with CNET, we've worked with, right now we're working with MSN and Yahoo. We're actually working with 4 of the top 5 internet companies, everybody but Facebook. And I've almost offered to pay them to let us do some research for them. But we also work with a lot of the traditional media companies, a large number of TV stations, a large number of channels, both on the interactive side and the traditional side. We've been doing some work to help some local newspapers kind of improve their situation in certain markets. So we're very much a cross-platform company. I work with a lot of traditional media companies in addition to a lot of internet companies. So we've been around and we recognize the breadth of platforms today. The work I'm going to show you was conducted on the YuMe network. So we intercepted people randomly across the YuMe network. We limited it to 13 to 54-year-olds, US resident. They had to watch online video at least once a week or more, which was, of course, pretty easy since we intercepted them on the YuMe network where they were watching video. And we fielded this late August through first week in September. Remember, this is a study of the YuMe audience, the tens of millions of people in the US out of the 90 million in the YuMe network. So this represents a group of very regular online video viewers, as you were about to see. Okay, the very first question that we wanted to start out early on in the study with was about their overall usage. In the past, online video, television, and what they anticipate in the future. And as you can see here amongst the YuMe visitors, you've got 66% saying, I am using online video more often. And you have 5% saying, I'm using it less often. So we still have very positive momentum. We also have positive momentum in terms of growth. In our own national research, we continue to see actually about a net positive of 5% more people coming online 6 months behind us and the 6 months going forward now in terms of total penetration for online video. This is, of course, amount of usage, and that's a huge number. 66% of the people plan to have used online video even more than they had 2 years ago in the year behind them. Television viewing, for the same audience, 19% say they've increased their television viewing. 29% say they've decreased their television viewing amongst the YuMe audience. What do they think is going forward? Well, this is a big number. 48% of them think they're going to even more increase their use of video in the year ahead. I mean, that's on top of 66% looking backwards in terms of increased video usage. In terms of TV, basically the same number statistically because of the margin of error here on a 500-person sample. 19% saying, I plan to decrease my TV viewing in the year ahead. 15% saying, I plan to increase my TV viewing in the year ahead. Now let's look a little bit at these people that indicate they increased their viewing from a year ago. Who is this audience that we're growing into? The people that have using it more and more in the past year, plan to use it more in the year ahead. Well, we're really broadening the audience. That's what's happening right now. Of all the people that say they're going to increase even more in the future, you got 78% of them are from the 35 to 54 population. When you look at the people that say they're going to increase their online video usage even more, if 70% of those people are female. So we're really growing into this 4-quadrant type of environment, this mass media sort of environment where we have men and women, young and old, not just 1 or 2 demos. How about behaviors? How about frequency of usage? In our national research, we see about 13% of the people that use online video say they're using it every day. In the YuMe population, 49% say they're using online video every day, 7 hours over a week. And it was interesting, in a very similar study, we asked people about their TV viewing, and we got about 4.75 hours, which is almost exactly what Nielsen will tell you it is. So it's nice to see that kind of validation of the consumer's ability to report their own behavior. 49% watching every day. I mean, that is a huge number. And this is a huge network, so we're not talking about small in either cases. And then this one I really found amazing, because when I think about my daily routine, you wake up, you go back to sleep, you wake up, you go back to sleep, you finally take a shower, you finally go to work, help your family, take care of your kids, your dogs, et cetera. I mean, right? I mean, that's the daily routine. Well, look at this. Amongst YuMe users, 22%, 1 out of 5 people, more than 1 out of 5, are saying watching online video is a regular part of my daily routine. I mean, this is like my mom and the Today Show and Days of Our Lives. A daily routine. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how consumers on the YuMe network believe they divide their video viewing time. We specifically pulled out here the heavy viewers. I just showed you them. 49% of the population watching online video every day. Then another group here, the moderate viewer group, which was another, I can't remember what it was, 20, 30%, something like that. So let's look at this population that represents half of the YuMe respondents. When you ask them to divide up their total daily viewing of video, they say that 50% of all their video is watched online and 50% on TV. I mean, that's a huge number, because the traditional media guys will tell you that 96, 97, 98, 99%, that, different numbers at different times of all video is consumed on television. I have no idea if that's true or not. I assume it is. But amongst the YuMe group, half of whom are watching online video every day, they say they're dividing their time 50-50. By the way, some methodologists, I'm sure we've got some MBAs in the room and whatnot, will object to, people reporting on their time usage and whatnot. So let me just give you this. That 50% that's online video viewing, it's half. I just give you that, okay? 25%. It's still an amazing number. 25% of total online video viewing versus 2% for the national audience. So, I mean, this is just, I was very amazed when I saw this. Continued increased usage, even amongst the heavier viewers. So, pretty impressive in terms of the massification and the broad demographics of this group. Okay, time shifting. I've been doing research on online video for over 6 years. I've been doing research on the internet for 15 years. The biggest thing I think I've learned in the last couple of years is that consumers of all age groups, not uniformly, not at the same rate, but lots of consumers and lots of demographics, what they really want is time shifting. The ability to move content from one time to another. Moving it from device to device, very important for a lot of us. But when you really look broadly at the country, what people are really saying is, I want to watch it whenever I want. Whatever, whenever, and wherever doesn't seem, at least in our research, to be as important to lots of consumers. Well, look at this. When you say, what lets me watch whenever I want, does that describe online better, or does that describe TV better? And remember, half the people have a DVR, so it should be kind of describing TV too. But when you talk to the YuMe viewers, it's 58%, yeah, that's YuMe. It's my time shifting buddy, not TV. Again, even though you have huge DVR penetration. So time shifting, very important consumer need that online video is serving. And of course, one of the great beauties of online video is that there's no DVR. Online video is actually your time shifting device, your DVR, with no ad skipping. Unless you care to program your clients' players to ad skip. But he who controls the player controls the ad skipping, and the publisher and the distributors control the player. So online video is a way to time shift and a way to actually decrease the kind of ad skipping that is done through DVR skipping. Okay, let's talk a little bit about skipping of ads. We asked consumers how often they skip advertisements. We looked at the YuMe audience. We looked at that same audience when they were watching TV. And when you're asking the YuMe audience about their behavior when watching online video, 29% say they're skipping 75% or more of the ads. When you ask them about their TV viewing, same people, about their TV viewing, 49% skip 75% or more of the ads. And as you can see here, top two boxes, 57 versus 41. So a self-reported higher level of ad skipping amongst the YuMe network when watching TV. By the way, I just ran a couple of numbers kind of at the last minute here that I wanted to share with you. Scott was talking about watching 0 hours of TV. This kind of goes back. I haven't gone backwards on this thing yet, this whole trip. Just go back to this for 1 second. So I wanted to pull this out. So out of this sample, we had 5% of the people who said they watched 0 TV. Now the margin of error on this is, plus or minus about 5-6%. So let's just pretend that's 0% to 10%. Say they watch 0 TV. I don't think it'll be 0%. You know how much hours of online they report? National average, about 6 hours. YuMe average, about 7 hours. The 5% that watch zero TV, 11 hours a week of online video viewing. They watch 11 hours a week of online video viewing. There's 9% that said they only watch an hour or less of TV. So now we're talking about 14% an hour or less. 14% is actually a big number in my world, in the mass media world. 9 hours of online. Those people, how about 1 to 2 hours a day? Well, 14% of the people say they're watching 1 to 2 hours a day. And they're watching 8 hours a week of online video. So there is this modest relationship right now between low TV viewing amongst the YuMe audience and high online video viewing. So there does appear to be a very precise and I suspect very important audience that is not reached effectively by TV, not even mentioning the issue here comparing advertisement engagement. Those people are using a lot of online video though on the YuMe network. I'm always really interested in talking about what's the future of an industry, you know, what's the quality, is it improved? There's been a lot of slam against online video over the years, you know, babies burping and so on and so forth. You know, it is amazing to me when I hear certain traditional media people kind of go down that hole, and then I think, oh yeah, you know, he probably doesn't like Justin Bieber, and I may not like Justin Bieber, but I bet his kids like Justin Bieber, and I bet Justin Bieber made more money that year than he did. Justin Bieber is completely discovered on online video. I mean, we could give you dozens of examples of that. And the consumer says the content's not so bad. Matter of fact, I'll give you a quality rating in a minute. But just in terms of overall improvement, you got 48% of the YuMe viewers saying, you know what, online video hasn't really improved. That really describes online video. 8% say TV's improved, which I think is totally understandable. It's a very mature medium with lots of big budget TV shows, and you know, that would be asking for a lot. But the important thing here is that online video in the minds of people is improving, and I'll show you a second even how they view it in terms of quality. When you talk about the future, when you say, you know, what's the future attitudinally of video viewing, amongst the YuMe audience, 42% say it's online video. Only 8% say it's TV, which in some regards is kind of surprising when you think about, you know, connected TV and interactive TV, and you know, I love my Blu-ray enabled, internet-enabled Blu-ray connected to my TV. I can watch YouTube faster than I can watch CNN. Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit about content with consumers too, because this is really what I'm told a lot by traditional people. You know, if the online video world grows, then there's never going to be any good content because no one's going to pay for good content, and all good content has a big budget, and all good content's on. That was a couple of networks. Sorry, I'm sure you couldn't hear it. And you know, I've really heard these guys say these things, and you know, a lot more 5 years ago than last year, but I'm still hearing them say it. Two of the top CEOs of two of the top TV companies declared last month at a Goldman Sachs conference that I was speaking at that we're in the golden age of TV. Now look, I like TV, but the golden age, that's a pretty strong statement. Well, let's see what the YuMe consumer thinks. The YuMe consumer thinks that when you're talking about exclusive content I can't get anywhere else. 50% say, you know what, that describes online video better than TV, with all that premium content and all that pay content. 50%, yeah, that's online video, exclusive content. And it's social grease, it's currency. 34% say, yeah, it's a great way. Online video keeps me up to date, keeps me in the know. And then this is just, you know, and by the way, I've seen numbers very similar to this in a number of studies we've done. Is it high quality? 19% of the people say, yeah, TV is high quality content. That describes TV really well. And the same number of people, 20%, say that describes online video pretty well. That's pretty good in, you know, 6-7 years of ubiquitous broadband penetration for online video to get to an even score amongst the YuMe audience in terms of quality. So I may be old, but I have learned that quality is in the eyes of the beholder. Let's talk a little bit about self-reported engagement. We asked consumers what they were doing, those on the YuMe audience, when they were watching online video and when they were watching television. What do they usually do? So this is a frequent behavior we're asking them to report. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of stuff that people do, you know, that we all do, that we've all done, you know, for years to avoid TV ads. You know, you got people fast forwarding now, obviously, because of DVR. Now, people with a computer, and we see that's about 42% of internet time, excuse me, TV time by internet users, they're multitasking. They got the computer open too at home, that's what they've self-reported. You know, there's 45% saying, yeah, I'm doing other things on my computer. And of course, that's not a TV issue. What's the TV issue, of course, is you got another population overlap here, but 10% higher. I'm changing channels. So those two kind of, you know, cancel each other out if you want to look at it that way. And then all these others are kind of equal up here and pretty much here. And we get left with these two behaviors that I usually do when I'm watching television ads. 54% I talk to other people. 58% I do things around the house. And we hear that all the time. Daytime, you totally hear that all the time. And then look when I'm watching online video. Scott referred to it as lean forward versus lean back. I also think of it as foreground and background. Look at this, 28% of the people talk to other people by doing their online video. 26% do other things around the house. And we're recognizing they're also emailing and so on and so forth. So for a consumer to report these types of differences in engagement around a couple of these key ad avoidance is certainly an indication that there's an engagement opportunity in the TV world. I want to turn over now to the Senior Vice President of Consumer Insights, Howard Schimmel from Nielsen.
So obviously, the dynamics of how consumers are being exposed to media, and you know, one of the things I think we want to do is talk about media because it was interesting. We had a discussion at breakfast about, you know, the world of the agencies and advertisers and thinking about marketing channels where at the end of the day, the consumer doesn't care about the marketing channels. The consumer cares about what they're consuming and, you know, Mike's point about, you know, what device, where, when they want. You know, and we really, you know, part of what we're trying to do as a company is we're trying to do two things, and obviously this is probably the most challenging point in time in Nielsen's history, and probably next week will be the most challenging point in time in Nielsen's history because of everything that changes. But, you know, our view is, so you're not talking to my back. Our view is that what we need to do to be relevant as a company is two things. First thing we need to do is we need to keep up with the technological changes that are going on within media. I mean, think about what's going on in the TV space now, over-the-top television, you know, the rollout of 3D TVs, things like that. That all changes the way we as a company need to approach TV measurement. A lot of stuff going on in online, the idea of rolling out an online GRP, so online can now start be reflected in mixed models that an advertiser does to try to prove value, to understand value things that are created by different media. So we not only need to do a great job of measuring each media individually, but we also have to create the infrastructure to allow people to now do a better job of thinking holistically across media. And if you think about what we're trying to do, we want to give a company like ESPN the opportunity when they run something like World Cup, which is TV and online and mobile and radio and magazines and other places. We want to give them the ability to look at that holistically. We want to give people like YuMe the ability to really talk about the role of video ad inventory relative to television. We want to enable agencies on behalf of your advertisers to be smart about understanding how these media work together so you can make the optimal decisions in terms of mix and things like that. So, you know, our world has gone from very much silos in individual media where we're trying to think more holistically. We have to do that. As we start thinking about the world and ad effectiveness in this new dynamic world, there really, we've coined this phrase, the 4 R's. And we think really understanding the contribution of each media individually and holistically for each of these is really important. Reach. How many people did I reach? What was the contribution of each marketing channel? What was the intersection across different marketing channels in terms of contributing to reach? Well, who did you reach? Was it the right demo? Was it the right marketing target? Receptivity, you know, did you reach people, Mike's point of lean forward? Did you take advantage of the opportunity to reach someone in a lean forward opportunity and really use that to drive your brand forward? Resonance, did your ad resonate? And clearly the most important one, reaction. What did consumers do? Did they go out and buy something? Did the reaction drive a more positive view of your brand? And again, we're thinking about this not only within each media, but really thinking about how this works cross-media, TV, online, and mobile. So, you know, obviously we're in a world where the way we need to think about things has changed dramatically. And it's a lot of fun, but it's obviously fraught with challenges. So Scott mentioned before this idea of the TV fusion. Obviously the challenge, one of the challenges too we face is creating these integrated data sets to allow people to make smarter decisions. Creating data sets not that sit outside and measure video ad network inventory here, TV here, but integrated data sets so you understand at an individual respondent level TV viewing, online usage, and you can capitalize on that really granular integrated data set. In the US, we don't have a single source TV internet data set that measures internet usage across, regardless of location. So we do this thing called data fusion. Data fusion is a statistical process where we take the online data, the Nielsen TV data, and we statistically integrate them. It's used by, so you don't think it's statistical hocus pocus, it's used by major media companies like ESPN and Turner, agencies like Starcom and MediaVest, advertisers. So this is something where the US market was actually really late to adopt fusion, but it's now at a point where it's a regularly used data set, where at the end of the day, we have a respondent level data with very granular information about what people watch on TV and what they do online. And that's really key to some of the examples you're going to see Travis show you. That data set enables a lot of really important applications for you guys. And again, think about this from an agency perspective or a client perspective and the types of things you want to learn. Audience evaluation. Every media company is coming to you with a cross-platform package. This allows you to really evaluate, well, what is the contribution of digital? What is the contribution of mobile to that package? Tactical media strategy. Think about the ability to plan digital on top of TV, knowing what you want digital to accomplish, and knowing what your base TV buy is going to accomplish. Think about that complementary thing. There may be a different web strategy if you want your digital way to add reach versus if you want your digital way to reinforce frequency with people you only think you're going to reach a couple of times with TV. You could be that tactical now with these data sets. The thing that Travis is going to show you, the idea of upfront, having better tools so that when you know you're spending $25 million to support a brand launch, you understand what the right mix of video ad inventory versus TV inventory. What is it that drives the most amount of reach and effective reach and engagement? And then on the back end, one of the things we don't do as an industry now, think about it, 2011, you run a cross-platform campaign, you get a TV GRP report from your TV buyer, you get a report that shows click-through on ad from the video, and you don't know how these two work together, and being able to do more in terms of cross-platform post-buys is really an important thing. The beauty of our infrastructure is it keeps the underlying TV and online data pure. So when you run a TV reach through our analytics, it's going to be the same as if you run a TV reach through the raw TV data. But then our analytics engine takes the TV weight, the online weight, integrates them together. So at the end of the day, you have the ability to say, here's a cross-platform plan, and here's the unduplicated reach and frequency of that plan. Because the data at its core is very granular, one of the things it allows you to do is be very specific about how you're planning individual components in terms of networks, video ad networks, programs. It allows you to be very specific about how you value different media, from the standpoint of cost per thousand, how well does it deliver the target, have you bought close to that media's reach potential, how does that media duplicate with other? And then basically you're able to very easily run different allocation scenarios so that by somewhat optimizing through trial and error, you're able to really get a better handle on how do you get the most amount of value from a reach and frequency perspective through your cross-platform buys. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Travis, who's going to walk you through an example that uses this data infrastructure.
Thanks, Howard. So we're thrilled that tools like this are coming to market that answer the question of if there really is this trend in online video that it needs to become an integral part of my mix. Like, how do I plan it? What does it look like? So we worked with one major CPG brand to answer that question. What happens when I shift part of my budget from online or from TV to online video? And to do that, we had to have goals. Like, what do we want to maximize? What do we want that to accomplish for us? So we picked 4 things that we wanted to maximize. First, overall reach. If Mike's telling us that there's this percentage of the audience that's best addressed through online video, how big is that percentage? How do I get incremental reach out of this medium? Second, effective reach. So there's, and I have some data to support this, but there's a lot of power in reaching an audience through multiple screens. So how can I get the majority of my audience to see the ad on multiple screens? So we'll look at what happens there. Effective reach, how do I get people to see my ad more times? Simply put, I want to increase the number of people who see 3 or more times, 6 or more times. How do I get an increase there? And then cost efficiencies, if I can get incremental reach, if I can get cross-platform reach, and if I can get more effective reach, then what are the cost implications there on a CPM basis? So we worked with a major CPG food brand that you'd all be familiar with. They spend an awful lot of money in TV. In this month that we assessed, it was $4.5 million. And their primary audience is women 18 to 54. So as Mike showed us, that's one of the fastest growing segments for online video. So if it is one of the fastest growing segments, how does the data look? And we did 3 basic scenarios. What happens when I take 5, 10, and 15% of that $4.5 million and put it into YuMe's network? So as you can imagine, with an audience that's highly addressable through television, they're already reaching a majority of their audience. In this case, 75.5% or so of their audience is being addressed through the original TV plan, which is great, but let's see what kind of incremental reach we can get on top of that. So they have a secondary, tertiary audience. I'm going to focus my comments on the primary audience, which is on the left-hand side. So the way that you read this is the gray bar is the original 75.5% reach. As the bars get progressively darker blue, that's the 5, 10, and 15% reallocation scenario. By the time we get to 10%, and then, of course, the 15% as well, we're picking up a couple points of reach, which on paper, you know, a couple points of reach doesn't look all that dramatic, but there's a deeper story there. In addition to that, the last couple points of reach are always the hardest to get and the most expensive to get. But looking under the hood, here's what the audience looks like now with that incremental reach. So as you can imagine, we're still spending 85% plus of the overall budget on TV. So it's no surprise that this blue area, which represents the people who are only seeing the TV spots, is still the largest area of the audience. The story really comes into play on the green side of the equation. So there you see in dark green the number of people who are now being reached through multiple screens. And I think this is where one of the primary benefits of online video comes into play. Now, one of the most interesting parts, though, is the light green area. So these are the people that Mike was talking about. These were the people that were part of Scott's premise for this whole roadshow. So if there is an audience that's best addressed through online video, it's that green area. These are the 1.7 million people that weren't seeing the ad, that are part of the demo through the TV plan. Now this 1.7 million people are seeing your ad. Now, speaking about that dark green area, the cross-platform reach, here's why it's so important. So I think we all kind of intuitively understand when you can reach an audience through multiple screens, there's power there. But what does the data look like? So Nielsen and Magid does a good job of quantifying just that. So they work with a couple hundred brands, have been doing this for several years now. And when they look across all the metrics that they track, so it's brand recall, it's message recall, it's likability, it's purchase intent, those type of attitudinal metrics, when they look at those who are exposed to only a TV ad, on average in this month period, 62% of people who saw a TV ad recalled the brand. Now, when you're able to reach the audience through multiple screens and the user saw the ad on TV and online video combined, 82% brand recall, a 20% lift in brand recall, which is fairly dramatic. You'll see the same for likability. You'll see the same for message recall. You'll see the same for purchase intent. This is why it's so important. So what does that number look like? As we go from the original plan to the 15% plan, we're able to pick up more and more of the audience that sees the ad through multiple screens. By the time we get to the 15% plan, a full fifth of the audience is now seeing your ad on multiple screens, right? So not a penny extra spent. Now we have 20% of the audience who's getting that 20% lift in brand recall and all the other recall metrics. This is where I think the real power of online video lies. So based on my experience at Intel, another thing that I wanted to look at was effective reach. So one of our biggest challenges was that we'd reach our audience, but sometimes not enough to be effective. So if we reach them once or twice during a flight, it is as if we hadn't spent the money at all. We saw through the data, quarter over quarter, we need to reach the audience 3, 4, 5, 6 times in order to move the needle, or else we might as well not be advertising. So if that's the case, then can we, with this cross-platform approach, increase the number of times that people see the ads? And the answer is yes. So as we go from the original scenario to the 15% scenario, we're able to increase the number of people who see the ad 3 times over the month-long period by about 6%, and those who see it 6 times during the month-long period or more by about 10%. So again, in and of itself, not a dramatic increase, but you stack this on top of the fact that you have 1.7 million new users who are seeing the ad. You have a large segment of the audience, up to 20% who's seeing the ad on multiple screens and getting that cross-platform effect. And then you have more people seeing the ad more times. And the story starts to really come together. So the final question then is, if we can increase these types of reach, what happens with cost? So through this Nielsen Fusion tool, we're able to look at where are the areas of the TV plan where we're spending incrementally, but they're not delivering an awful lot more to the plan in terms of incremental reach or in terms of incremental frequency. And we could pick the areas with diminishing returns and put those into online video. And sometimes those areas are quite expensive on the TV plan, and they could be better spent in an underspent medium like online video. So by cutting from those areas, putting it in online video, what happens to the numbers? Well, it started with that the campaign had an effective CPM of almost $10. So this is a mix of day parts. This is a mix of prime, cable, right? By the time we got to 15%, we were able to drive it down by about $1, which is impressive, but it's more impressive when you think about the fact that online video, we hear time and again, is expensive relative to cable television. So you can buy an inexpensive cable television day part at a fraction of the cost sometimes that you can buy online video. But that doesn't really tell the cost story, because the cost story doesn't come in very clear until you start to look at the points of diminishing return where you might be overspent, put that into online video where you might be underspent, and you can drive down the cost that way. So we were able to drive down the cost from $9.78 to $8.85 with a CPM that was higher than $9.78. So that, we think, is pretty impressive. And what that represents is a big increase in the number of GRPs on the plan. So depending on the audience that you're looking at, that's 10 to 15% more GRPs across the entire plan without spending an incremental penny. This is all just a reallocation. But I'm not going to read all the data to you on this slide. You'll take it home with you. But I just want to call out the key points that we see is you can pick up this audience that's easier to address with online video. You can reach an audience through multiple screens, and you can reach an audience more times. So that's where we think the real power of online video is.
All right. So actually what I would like to do at this point, I promised you that we'd actually have 4 additional speakers. And if I may, I'd like to summarize what he's heard and lean in his perspective, as well as take you guys through Q&A. I'd like to introduce the Vice President of the Eastern Region here for YuMe. 4 years at YuMe, I might add, so he knows online video extremely well, and that's my colleague, Gian Lombardi. If you would, please. Sir?
Really, I think what we're facing, to use a commonly used analogy, is a perfect storm, right? This could very well be the weather map over the East Coast any given week this winter. But in fact, I think it's very applicable to what we're seeing with respect to changing media consumptions, and in particular online video. So when you think about a perfect storm, there's different components that create that storm. And with respect to what we're seeing with video consumption, there's really three key components to what that perfect storm is comprised of. I think first and foremost what we've learned is that the increased shift in consumption of online video is not a generational shift. It's not about a particular younger demographic or tech-savvy demographic. It's really a technology shift. It's the availability of a quality experience across many devices. And it spans across all demographics, whether it's my 73-year-old father in Florida, my 45-year-old mother of three sister in New Jersey, myself, my nieces and nephews who are younger. It's really across a broad spectrum of the population. And it's not generational, which is important for a lot of marketers. The second piece is that when we're talking about these shifts, and we're talking about the folks who are really difficult to reach in the online, in the television environment, those folks who might have cut the cord or are just simply time shifting, or just simply harder to reach through television today, those in fact are the easiest folks to reach through online video, which is fortunate for marketers. And then I think the third piece of this perfect storm as it comes together is that campaign ROI for a traditional TV plan, the ROI you're going to see on that campaign will increase dramatically without any additional spend, simply by shifting the allocations to include a % of that spend against online video. So we're able to see the cost come down, the reach increase, the cross-platform reach increase. Some really good stuff there from an ROI perspective if you're willing to make that shift. Thanks so much, guys.